Hello there, and welcome to Alvarez's Diecast Customs. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Hot Wheels Ford Mustang. It's quite an interesting looking little car, this one. I like the details on the rear there, and the front splitter on the front there. And there's quite a lot we can do with this one. Sort of feeling a sort of Gaslands, Mad Max kind of vibe. So let's take a closer look, shall we? Yeah, it's a great looking little car. As I said, I really like the added details there. It's got a plastic base. I've already taken the time to drill the posts out, start off with a 2mm drill bit and work up to a 5mm to remove the main piece of the head off. I like to use some 2mm self-tapping screws just to screw back into the holes. There's that plastic base. Go about removing those wheels at some point. As an interior, it's quite a nice little detailed interior, this one, with the extinguishers and whatnot there, and the roll cage. There's the window piece. It's quite intricate there with the headlights and tail lights attached to that. We won't be using the window on this one, but I will be removing the lights from it because we will need to keep those. And there's the body. It's not too bad at all. It's quite a nice little sort of paint job on that. Not too keen on the stripes, but we can get on with stripping that now. Just dunk it into the pot of paint stripper. We'll leave this for around 30 minutes to an hour. Then we take the body out and chuck it under a hot water tap with an old toothbrush to scrape off the remaining pieces of the paint. I've already taken the time to clean that up. I also went over it quickly with a wire wheel, and you're left with this. It's in pretty good shape, to be honest. Usually fine with even the new Hot Wheels cars. The mouldings are in quite rough shape. There's sort of errors and mould lines all on it. There's not too much on this one. Just sharpen up around the headlight areas. There's a bit of flashing within those. So just go around cleaning those up. So around the window areas, they were a bit rough. Just clean those up too. Wasn't a whole lot needed doing with this one. Usually I'm there for ages filing, but only spent a couple of minutes on this one. Quite a nice finish to it. Also went around the wheel arches. It's just a bit of flashing around those, just taking those back. There we go, just after a quick bit of filing, left with that. So I want to add some extra details on this one. I've got this piece of aluminium foil. It's quite thick. I got it from a dog food tray. I'll just clip the bottom off of it and use this. I find it's quite easy to work with. It sort of keeps its shape and bends and cuts quite easily. I want to make some sort of visor for the window. I'll just use a Sharpie just to mark out roughly the sort of size of the piece I need. We can cut this quite easily with a scalpel, as you can see. We're just going to offer this up to the body, around the window, just trying to get an idea of where we need to have it. Just going to give it a cut again. I've got an idea of how big of a piece I need for it. There's that. Just test fitting it again. It's a bit too wide, so I'm going to need to clip the sides off a bit. Just use some scissors for this. A bit more control using the scissors. I'm just going to score a line down the center of it. Makes it a bit easier to fold. I'm not going to cut all the way through, just to lightly score it, so I can put a fold into it. I did this for quite a while. As you can see, I added some extra sort of body armor pieces to the front and around the windows. I also used that solder, that lead-free stuff that I used on the unicorn roll cage. I also cut some little pieces of that, stuck those over the windows and over the rears there. Just adding some extra detail with the tip of the scalpel, pressing it into that aluminium. It's quite soft, so it makes a sort of rivet dents into it. It's quite a nice detail. I also had some old mesh that I had lying around from an old computer fan filter, so I chopped that up and used that for the rear window. I'm going to use some of that Vallejo putty. I'm going to fill in some gaps around the pieces that I glued on and just sort of blend them into the body. Also, I'm not being neat about this, sort of slapping it on, wiping it over the sort of bars there, give them sort of a rusty, rough look to them. I'll be going around quite a bit of the body using this stuff, just filling in gaps and adding sort of extra details to everything. It's really easy to work with, quick drying time as well. So yeah, just working it into all the sort of glue sections, making them look like they belong there and they're not just glued onto it. Same with the roof. Again, not being neat. The rougher the better. Just filling in the gaps there. Now I'm going to add some texture to a lot of the door panels and side panels on this. So what I'm going to do is just spread some of that putty onto the doors and just gently sort of dab it all over. This gives quite a rough texture to the finish on it. Makes it look sort of rusted and dented. Yeah, just there it is, just after a bit more time. You can see some extra sort of details I used with the putty on the front there. Filled in some of the gaps around the rear there, around that mesh that I attached. And also scored the scalpel into some of those aluminium pieces just to give a bit more extra texture. So we need to do something about those wheels again. We're going to go see our goddess Super Pachaco, see what she can do for us. Oh, what are these? Are those for me? Nice. Look like a set of Real Riders. Yeah, these would go nicely. Yep, very nice. Thanks for that. I went over the body in a quick coat of Halford's primer just to see where I was going with it. I felt like I needed some extra details, so I added some on the rear there. I also used some brass tubing for the exhaust pipes. And put some extra solder bars on the front there. This is the final colour I went with, just a matte black from the Humbrol range. Spray can, goes on very nicely. Also did the interior in aluminium. Just a good base colour to start off with. And there's the base. Gave that a good coat of matte black too. All a good sort of base to work from. We can start adding the details on top. I also painted the wheels. They were chrome. We can't have chrome on this thing. It's the Gaslands sort of style. So I just went over with the aluminium spray with those and turned the tyres on the other way. So what we're going to do to add some extra depth to all of this, we're going to dry brush some silver paint onto it. I'm just using some Revell silver and sort of a soft bristly brush. Just work those in. As you noticed, I brushed most of the paint off on a piece of tissue before I started applying it to the body. You don't want to put it on too thickly. You just gently brush it in. and it starts catching the raised areas. I'm going to go over the whole body with this. It really starts bringing out the texture. It's quite a nice looking sort of finish to it when you put that on. I did the base too, went over that. Just adding some extra details. Some of those aluminium pieces I'm just painting in Tamiya metallic grey. Make those stand out a bit more. Just lightly brush some of that onto the bars. And we're going to be dry brushing some Vallejo brown onto the car as well. Just bringing out some of the rustier patches. We'll go over most of the car with this too. It's all done in layers, the process I'm doing here. You keep adding layers and layers and layers of different sort of paints. You just end up with a final finish that you're after. We do the wheels too. Can't have those clean. There we go, there's with the brown done. I also lightly went over some areas in Tamiya copper, just to give it a bit of a sheen to some sections. Now here I'm just applying some dirty sort of paint mixture that I had. Use some brown and blacks and other sorts of sort of darker colours with a bit of water it down. It gives you sort of a dirty, muddy wash. Just applying that to certain sections of the car. Now we're going to go over some Citadel Known Oil. This is going to start bringing everything together with the dark wash that it has. It's going to find all the details, all the depths of it, really start clinging to it, bringing out a lot of the sort of textures and things a lot more. We apply this quite liberally all over the body. As you can see, it's really just sort of pulling the details there. Doesn't look so flat now. Do the base along with that. Again with the wheels. We're just going to go over some extra bits with some Tamiya Weathering Master Rust and the dark shade there. Just apply this to most of the sort of lower areas of the body. There's that window piece. I've clipped the windows off. Won't be keeping that window for this one. I'll chuck it in the spare parts tray. Maybe be able to use it eventually in the future. There's those lights. Give those a good paint. Stick those in with some glue. And that's what you're left with. Went over the rears in silver and then with some Tamiya clear red. And then a bit of Known Oil over both ends. You can see some extra details I've done to the body there. That's the clear red too. And with those wheels, I knocked up some extra axles. You can see how I did this in my previous build with that Ford 32. Use some sort of brass tube, cut it the size, and slot the original axles into them, and then pop a bit of glue into them to hold them tight. This gives you the ability to have different wheel sort of widths to them. You can have sort of wider wheel bases and things. So we're just going to glue those in. Drop a super glue into each channel. And just pop the wheel axles into there. As you can see, there's a bit of play side to side with those rear ones, so we just need to center those up just about where we need them before that glue dries. That way it'll stay exactly where we need it. Right, so we're ready to put it together now. I had someone ask me in my previous video just what these brass tubes that I use are. I'll show you in just a moment. So I got these from my local model shop. It was Antics in Bristol, UK. They're a few quid. 3 tubes of them in here. Very easy to cut with just a simple scalpel. I find these excellent for the standard Hot Wheels axle sizes that they have. You can clip them and use the bits and slot them into those tubes. Very handy to have. As you can see, they're nicely glued in now. There's that interior. I did quite a bit of extra detail in there. Painted those extinguishers, the seats there. Gave it a bit of weathering rust. Also, note I've painted black the sort of wheel wells there. We don't want those showing up silver through the wheels and the wheel arches. There's that body. Those lights glued in. Just pop that interior in. Pop the base on. Get all that screwed down tightly. So before I reveal it, let's take a look at what we started with. As you can see, it was a great looking little Hot Wheels Ford Mustang, this one. Really good details to it. It was a good base to start from, I felt. I had a sort of good, sort of aggressive stance and a look to it that I thought I could take further with it. So there you go. Let's take a closer look at it. Very pleased with how this one came out. It's not something I've done like this before. Never done a Mad Max sort of style like this. Really enjoyed doing it. Makes a change from all the builds that I've been doing recently, where I've sort of strived to have like really neat paint jobs and finishes to them. This one is, you kind of just go along just doing whatever. Really enjoyed doing it. Let me know down in the comments if you liked what I come up with here. Maybe it's something I might do in the future. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. It'll be a great one to add to the collection. See the extra details there I added. The red paint gives a good sort of blood effect when you dab that on. As you can see, that Nuln oil really just ties everything together. I also added a bit more depth to everything by going over lightly in some areas with some clear gloss. Sort of brushed it lightly onto them. Gives a bit more sort of dimension to the body. So let's return to Super Pochaco and see what she's got for us next time. Ah, that looks like a Corvette. Nice. Ah, this is not too bad. It's looking a bit rough in areas, but yeah, I like it. Let's see what we can do about those abrasions to the roof. Yeah, I like it. Like it a lot. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Would like to do some more like this in the future. So if you liked it, let me know. I'll see you next time.